Let's get back to our top story of the morning, the Prime Minister's announcement that he'd make $1 billion available to some local councils to boost infrastructure development and try and speed up house building. John Key is in our Auckland studio. Good morning to you, Prime Minister.
Morning.
How does this help me if I'm, say, part of a 30-year-old couple with a $100,000 household income looking for a house in a city where the average price is nearly $1 million in Auckland? How does that help me now?
Okay, so what you need is an affordable house, and bluntly, you need supply to do that, because what's driving up house prices has been the lack of supply. And so this allows councils to develop a lot more space more quickly, because effectively we're paying the bill, and by the time they have to pay us back, the cash is coming from the developers.
Okay, you used a key word there, affordable. Is there any constraint or actual ruling that says that these houses or a proportion of them have to be affordable?
They may do. So it depends. Some of the special housing areas have those conditions where there has to be a certain number under a price, or they allow development, like Weymouth was a good example of that. But
when you say they may do, are you saying that you might make it a condition of releasing this money to a council having a proportion of them that were under 500,000 or whatever it was?
Well, it was a condition around some of the special housing areas. So what this will allow, some of the special housing areas aren't being developed, I suspect, at the moment, because they can't connect up, but there's also other areas that will be approved. And when we go and do this, it's very bespoke. So we can go to the councils and say, show us the proposition, show us the houses, show us what the deal is, show us how you're going to do it, how fast you're going to release it, what's the conditions here.
How long will this take to actually make any dent in house prices?
Well, what's happening at the moment, if you look at Christchurch as a very simple example, they effectively, through the use of a combination of what is really UDAs and a hell of a big release of land in one go, house prices have stopped going up. They went up 3% and rents have fallen. And if you can get enough supply in Auckland, you'll do the same.
So you're going to say this morning that you think you can get that situation in Auckland where you virtually stop house prices rising?
Well, it's a supply issue. So ultimately, when supply meets demand, yes. But of course, it depends, on so many different factors. I mean, you could get a lot of factors which, if there was an economic downturn or interest rates went up too much, well, prices could actually go down. But
you don't want that.
But we don't want that. But what we do want is a more sustainable model to ensure that there's enough supply.
Okay.
And in amongst that comprehensive plan that we've developed, there's a lot of different component parts.
And
this is just one.
The plan is quite long.
It's very long.
But it doesn't seem to have made a difference so far. And it appears that you are doing everything other than funding the building of houses. Why don't you do what they do in Singapore, where the government develops and the government funds the building of houses? Why are you so ideologically opposed to actually getting in there and funding the building of houses rather than the infrastructure?
Okay, so the thing that's holding back houses, if you want to accept it in those terms, being developed, is not the lack of capital from developers. There's a ton of developers out there. What they want is to know they've got RMA consent and to be able to get the thing going. The one point I'd probably pull you up on, I suppose, is to say that I don't think it's right when you say that you've got all these things, but things aren't sort of moving, or you use some sort of phraseology. The reason there's 24,000 more people working in the construction sector in Auckland than there was 2 years ago is because there's just a mountain of stuff coming through. What is the big problem always with housing is the lead time. You can't click your fingers and go from 4 years ago when people didn't really want to buy houses in the rate they do today because the conditions were different to supply overnight.
Okay, we're running out of time, about 30 seconds before the 8 o'clock news. But when do you think that this will make a difference to stabilising house prices in Auckland?
Well, I think you're starting to see the signs of that, because you're starting to see a lot more supply coming through. Now, I accept there are many conditions. I just can't give you an exact date, but what I can tell you is if you look at all of the things happening and the number of consents and the number of houses, it's dramatically larger than it was 3 or 4 years ago. And eventually, when supply equals demand, prices stop going up.
Prime Minister John Key, thanks for your time.